Well, the mayor of
McLendon-Chisholm has been playing politics, but with some dirty tricks, a parliamentary procedure that is illegal. It's time for some straight talk, McLendon-Chisholm and Rockwall County. I'm Bunker Bob Steinhagen, and this is The Bunker Bob Show. Well, good afternoon, and it has been a couple of weeks since the last we saw one another, and I am glad to be back in the saddle. It has been, spring break is now over, and we have now the coronavirus that is keeping us all home. So I'm sure that I'll have a lot more people watching these shows since you have a little more time on your hand, and I hope not to waste your time with it. Making sure that everything I talk about is going to be something that you're interested in and is applicable to Rockwall County. And today I'm focused on McLendon-Chisholm, the mayor of McLendon-Chisholm. Keith Short is the way a mayor in a general law type A city like McLendon-Chisholm works is unlike Rockwall and Royce City and Fate. The city of McLendon-Chisholm is governed not by home rule rules, but the state of Texas. And the mayor, I should say, has just one power and one power alone, and that is the power to basically put together an agenda. And that is pretty much the sole power of any mayor. And so one of the things that, and I'm getting pinged here. I want to make sure that okay, very good. The audio is back. One of the things that Mayor Short did on this last agenda was a dirty little parliamentary trick, and I'll explain what that parliamentary trick is. It's called a consent agenda. A consent agenda is not necessarily a trick. So don't get me wrong, consent agendas are common for any governing body that wants to use what's called Robert's Rules of Order, which as a city council member, I proposed using Robert's Rules of Order, and the city council voted unanimously to agree to that. We also agreed to get rid of consent agenda. Well, what is a consent agenda? Well, a consent agenda is essentially a way for the governing body to move past things that are routine or recurring. They're procedural decisions. They're non-controversial issues that don't require debate or deliberation, or items previously discussed for which the team, or in the case of our city, or the city of McLendon-Chisholm, that they have already come to a consensus through an open forum. And so the kinds of things you see on a consent agenda are previous meeting minutes, financial reports, the mayor's report, individual program department reports, committee appointments, staff appointments that require confirmation. So these are things that are very simple, that you don't really have to have any discussion or understand why things are the way they are. And so on this last meeting, the mayor added a consent agenda to this agenda. Now, the fact that he brought a consent agenda back, to me, wasn't too big of an issue. I didn't know that the council had approved bringing the consent agenda back. I just assumed that it had. But since consent agenda items are typically for just what I showed you, for the redundant, for the menial tasks, I wasn't concerned, and nor was anyone else really. So when the mayor talks about it, you've got to understand there's the agenda, which is 3 pages long, and I'll just show it to you in just a little bit. It's 3-page long agenda. It has over 82 pages of documents, supporting documents with the agenda. So clearly, this is going to be a council meeting that is going to discuss all of the issues that are going on that are controversial, that are not regular or recurring, right? So, and the agenda shows that. The agenda shows other things that are in the agenda. So here is Mayor Short, and understand this city council meeting starts with the pledge and prayer, and then the mayor did a proclamation for National Child Abuse Month. And then he goes into the next part of the agenda, and here it is. Watch this.
Next thing up, consider approval of the March 10th, 2020 City Council meetings. I'll entertain a motion to approve the City Council meetings from that, City Council meeting minutes from that.
Mayor, it's all under consent
agenda.
agenda.
That one is under consent? Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right. What we're doing is a consent agenda for tonight. I'm looking for a motion to approve all the agenda items.
Your Honor, I'll make a motion to approve all the agenda items in paragraph 6 of the consent agenda.
All right. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Show that unanimous. All right, now moving on to number 7, discussion and action regarding community outreach.
Yeah, so there was other business that they attended to. This consent agenda, for anyone who's sitting there, and as I came in and I was setting up cameras to film the council meeting, and so I'm listening to what's going on. And I knew that there were issues that I wanted to speak to during the meeting, and so I was not going to speak during citizen comments. I was holding keep my powder dry, if you will, to talk about issues that are specific to the points that are included on the agenda. What I didn't realize was that those issues were actually on the consent agenda. And so when you see what I'm talking about, this is the agenda itself, so that you can get a better understanding of what I'm talking about. So here's the agenda. It's all of the agendas look very much alike. And understand, as the former mayor of McLendon-Chisholm, I put together the agendas like this. And so to the casual observer, or to someone like me who looks at agendas all the time, I look at this and I say, okay, this is a pretty typical agenda, consent agenda items. I guess I gave a brief cursory overview of it. Okay, they're adding consent agenda. And notice what it says there right under the number 6. It says the consent agenda consists of non-controversial items required by law. Items may be considered individually by any council member making such request prior to a motion and vote on the consent items. And so that's essentially what I'm there for. And as you heard, the mayor said this is a consent agenda. This is a consent agenda, or we're going to do a consent agenda tonight. What that meant to me, and what it meant to most of us who were sitting there, is that they were basically going to add consent agenda back. It's been 4 years, over 4 years, since the consent agenda has been brought back to the city of McLendon-Chisholm. So I guess they were, I assumed, as most everyone else, that they were trying to get through the usual and customary non-controversial issues that are associated with this. So the problem is, when you look at the next page, however, you start looking and you start seeing that they're going to be approving a plat for Sonoma Verde Phase 4, which is 33.494 acres. They're going to do another plat in Sonoma Verde Phase 4B, which is 30 acres. They're going to those are those in addition to the previous page, which I showed you just a minute ago, that shows another plat. And so these plats, as you start thinking about it, you go, wait a minute. And when you look at all of the body of information that is involved in this decision, how could this be? Because it's neither usual or customary. It's not something they see on the agenda every month at all. They hardly see it. This comes once, I don't know, every couple of years. The last time we approved a plat was, I think, when I was mayor. So this is a big issue. Those of you who are in Sonoma Verde, don't you think that a discussion should have taken place to better understand what was being presented? So there is the first, I guess, red flag. And then when you look at the discussion and action regarding a resolution to amend and extend the disaster declaration that is issued by Mayor Keith Short, you see there that this is now they're talking about the coronavirus. Shouldn't they have a discussion about what is important and what's going on there? But here's the bigger issue. Mayor Keith Short is opposed in this election. He is the only person. There are two members of council that are up for re-election, and the mayor. Those three positions, and only Mayor Short is up for, actually has an opponent. And so this, I guess, should raise some concern when you see the next thing that's been included on the agenda here. If you look at item 6.6, a resolution ordering that the general election scheduled for May 2nd be postponed. And are you postponing it a few weeks or months? No. You're postponing it for over 6 months. November 3rd, 2020. That's right. Mayor Keith Short is basically created an agenda, and he put this little item right in between some other items on a consent agenda. And as you heard, when you watched the video, you noticed, I'm sure, that the mayor did not ask. He just said, we're voting on the consent agenda. He did not go through and list, here are the things that are on the consent agenda, which is, by the way, usual and customary when you're officiating a meeting and a consent agenda. You would simply say, we're going to be dealing with the issues that are on the consent agenda are the minutes from this meeting, these plats, this disaster declaration, changing the date of the election, postponing it for 6 months. These are the kinds of things that you would do. Mayor Short did not do that. Why? Well, because he wanted to make sure that this next item, 6.6, passed. He didn't want people taking note of the fact that even though this is optional, even though this is something that every mayor and city council has a right to discuss and debate, Governor Greg Abbott had offered this and recommended this for cities and counties to follow. But he left it up to the local communities to make those decisions for themselves. When you have President Donald Trump talking about the fact that we're going to try to get back to business sometime in April, and you have this rush to delay an election, shouldn't that at least be something that you talk about just a little bit? Doesn't that merit it? I think it does. The mayor doesn't. So he made sure that this thing was on the consent agenda. Again, no discussion whatsoever. Then you move into the consent agenda to two other items. And as you'll notice, these are awarding a contract to Mike Coker and to basically DeFreight and Associates. And this is for a city engineer and a city planner. Now, why? What's the big deal about this? Well, only this. This is a contract that is being given to two different individuals, basically. Dub DeFreight was the old engineer when I was mayor, and by old I mean he was the previous engineer, and Mike Coker was the city planner when I was mayor. Of course, Mike Coker is the reason why we found ourselves in court being sued by a tower company, because our city planner, unbeknownst to me and without my approval and knowing that I would not be okay with this, made a recommendation to approve a tower that violated our city's height standards. And so had he simply followed our ordinances and done, which is what I requested of him, to follow our ordinances, let us make the decision if we want to make changes, and any recommendation that you make should only be within the bounds of the ordinances. Well, Mr. Coker didn't do that. He decided to make the recommendation, and we ended up in court. The irony of it is that we ended up I think $65,000 ahead because we actually won the settlement, and the tower company had to pay us. The problem is the tower still went up. And so, in my opinion, while we won the battle, they won the war because they got their tower. We got some money out of it. So here you have two contracts that are being signed, that are put on the consent agenda without discussion, without deliberation. And here is the bigger issue. Now, that was March the 24th. That was 2 days ago. March 24th, that's when this meeting was. Okay, March 24th, keep that in mind. So part of this agenda includes something from March 19th, 2020, just a few days before. Now, understand, they've not approved Unapproved as the city engineer, and yet what do we see? We see him doing engineering work and copying, guess who? Mike Coker on it. That is before they have even been given this is before they've been approved for the contracts. So that is a little unsettling. So I've made some open records requests, and I expect I'll get those very soon. Finally, when you look at the agenda, and going back to look at the agenda, you see that on this agenda, there are reports that are on this agenda. And as you see there, it's item 8. Now, the consent agenda was item 6. And all of those things. And so you have these things that, by the way, come to the city council almost every month. These are the same reports that the city council sees every month. These are usual and customary. These are the things that you would put on a consent agenda. But where are they? They're on the regular agenda. Now watch this.
Does anybody have questions over 8, which is building reports, sheriff's reports, budget report, fire report, or the trash report? Okay, we're done with those. Updates, directions.
Yep. So there you go. As usual, they have nothing to say about them. So the question is, if this consent agenda were in any way, had any integrity at all, the question is simple, is obvious. Why weren't those things put on this consent agenda? And why were things that are controversial, that require discussion and deliberation, why were they put on a consent agenda? Now, here's a couple of options for the mayor. Now, the mayor basically, in my opinion, abused his power. He can't put these things on a consent agenda. By the way, this has gone to the district attorney in Rockwall County. I filed a complaint about this, and the district attorney, and what I've asked is that those things be stricken from the record, that they have to go back to city council and be put on a regular agenda so that they can be meted out, so that they can be considered in order and in an open session. That's what I'm asking for. And I hope that if you're watching this and you agree with me, that you'll go on the district attorney's website, and then you'll also, there's a place where you can, there's a page where you can make requests, or you can even call the district attorney and say, listen, I don't think it's right what they did to put all of this stuff on a consent agenda. It's not. It is a violation of the rules. It's a violation of Texas Open Meetings Act, and it's a violation of the law. Because the city is under Robert's Rules of Order, you can't put things that are controversial, that require a vote, that require discussion. You can't put those things on consent agenda. That is a violation of the Texas Open Meetings Act. Mayor Short either did this on purpose to push forward his agenda so that he could stay in office another 6 months, so that he could prevent Val Bodart, who is running against him, from being able to campaign and force her to spend more money, so that citizens can actually hear from someone who actually. By the way, do you know what's interesting is Val Bodart has attended more meetings since Mayor Keith Short has been mayor than Mayor Keith Short has. Keith Short is missing in action all the time. And it's not because he's a first responder. No, it's because he's on vacation or he's doing other things. So wouldn't it be nice to have someone like Val Bodart running our meetings, being our mayor, representing our city? So that's the first option, that the Mayor Short did it on purpose. Or the second one, and the second argument that could be made is, well, wait a minute, Keith. Now here's the thing: if Mayor Short says this, he's basically opened himself up to a huge amount of litigation. He will be charged because it will prove once and for all, as something that I have been saying all along, that this city council meets behind closed doors. They meet away from an open meeting, and they make decisions outside of the purview of the citizens of McLendon-Chisholm. What is interesting here is the city council. He could argue, well, the city council agreed with all of these things, so they didn't have any objections to it. The question is, how would you know that? How could you possibly know that unless you've talked to them outside of an open meeting? I would argue that if you did that, if you actually did talk to them, that's called a walking quorum. That is a violation of Texas state law, and Mr. Keith Short will be in hot water like none other. The mayor cannot go behind the closed doors. He can't call each member of council and get their vote and get their decision. He can't do that. What's interesting is that the state legislature, this last legislative session, firmed up this open meetings walking quorum thing. Because it used to be where the mayor and two other members of council could discuss thing, or I'm guessing because of litigation, something happened where a mayor was going around and he was talking to people one-on-one, and then conferring with another person, and saying, well, they said this, and basically having the meeting, but being able to say, well, we did not meet all three of us. I did not meet with three members of council. I only met with two. But in fact, he was meeting with every member of council. Nathan Hodges did this when he was mayor. He violated Texas state law. And of course, he resigned from office because of it. Because I threatened to file charges against him for doing that, for going behind my back. I've talked about that in another show. So I don't know how Mayor Short expects to get out of this. Just in conclusion, because I'm almost done here. When the meeting was over, I had not unpacked my camera gear. I was still unpacking my camera gear when the meeting ended. The meeting lasted less than 9 minutes for a 3-page agenda that had over 80 pages of supporting documents. 9 minutes. So I was baffled. I couldn't believe it. Trudy Wosner and Nathan Hodges, they ran out of the city council meeting. They kept their heads down and they would not look up at me. I was saying, what just happened? How can you do that? Mayor Short, I was talking to another citizen, and I was saying, this is outrageous. This is outrageous. Mayor Short, he butted in and said, excuse me, Mr. Steinhagen, you have a right to your opinion, but it doesn't mean that we have to listen to you. My response to him is, well, you don't listen to me anyway. What does it matter? I said, this is amazing. He goes, we can do this. I said, I don't think so. He goes, oh, yes. And Keith Short is someone that, to argue with someone like Keith Short is like talking to a wall. He doesn't. He hears nothing that you have to say. He's one of those kinds. He's a short man. Ironically, his last name's Short. He's a short little man with a badge, and I guarantee you he loves to wield his power when he's walking around the school as a school resource officer. And as mayor, he likes to wield his little power. He's a little man with a little power, and so he likes to wield it beyond to everyone, and especially to me. It was funny. When at one point I said, "This is, you lied to get elected. You lied to get in office, and now you're lying again." And he goes, "Well, if you can prove that, why don't you present facts?" I said, "Well, you ought to watch my show because I've done that." I said, and he goes, "Well, I'm still mayor." And I said, "Yeah, the fact that you're corrupt and you're a mayor doesn't make any difference. I mean, the fact that you are corrupt and that you are a mayor, that you're still in office, that's why, because you lied to get in office." This is emblematic of the problem with the city council in McLendon-Chisholm. McLendon-Chisholm, this city council, by the way, has just approved adding 2 more firemen to the fire department. And I am going to do the show where I'm going to talk about all the fire calls. And apparently it looks like we're not going to have an election until November. Even if they go back to the well and have to redo the meeting, we're going to probably see another meeting or the election in November. And that'll be the time. This will be after the city council has to raise your taxes, because there is absolutely no way they can continue funding the fire department as the safer grant goes away. They don't have the money to do it, but now they're adding more people, and by the way, those who are in the unincorporated area of the fire district, those in the unincorporated area of the fire district continue to pay nothing for their fire safety, for their fire protection, every time a medical call is raised from outside of our city. These people who pay no taxes, by the way, they get free fire service, and the city council has not made one bit of effort to try to get them to contribute to their own fire protection. So I'll have a whole show dealing with that probably in the next few weeks, maybe a month. It may be closer to the election. I don't know, but I am going to be presenting this information because I do know that it's something that you care about and that is important. So I do think that there's a lot more to talk about. I will stay with you, and I will make sure that you are informed about what is happening in our city and in the county of Rockwall. I'm Bunker Bob Steinhagen, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Have a great day.